Hello, everyone, and welcome to another episode of the Atomic Podcast. I'm extremely excited and honored to have a dear friend, but also a fellow technologist, a creative, Kate Stone. And Kate and I have gotten to know each other over the years around what it means to be a programmer and to some degree a designer of AI. AI I'm using very loosely, so forgive me, but also how to work with large language models, and and Kate has a very interesting background, from academia. So I'm going to turn it over to Kate, and I would love Kate to kind of give a flavor of your background, a bit of your origin story, and then we'll take it from there.
Okay, fabulous, and thanks for having me.
Sure.
This is gonna be fun.
Yeah, of course it's going to be fun.
Yeah, okay. Where do I start? Maybe start early on as kind of very curious child who maybe got into mischief with playing with wires and buttons and connecting things and blowing things up with electricity. So always been curious by that. But I think my curiosity made it difficult for people to understand me. So I was a child that didn't do too well at school, kind of failed high school, disappeared, traveled the world, became a sheep herder for a few years, and learned about the flow of sheep through the desert, as I did that on a motorbike in Australia for a couple of years. But then really felt I love understanding everything in the world around me, so really drawn to physics and electronics. So then I managed to get into college. Um, did really well in my first degree, electronics, and that led me to doing a PhD in physics at Cambridge, which was quite a journey, really, to go from herding the sheep to. And my physics PhD was to create single electron transistors, which we had to learn the fabrication processes to make transistors myself, use electron beams, and basically shepherd electrons through silicon so I could observe them going by one. So making things really small, learning how to measure and make a system and measure things when they were really cold as well. So that's where I kind of ended up, which was amazing to be in that laboratory where so much physics has been discovered.
So
Um,
much physics. It has such a rich history.
it's so crazy, yeah. And then
Yeah.
doing my own experiments there. So yeah,
Yeah.
that's my journey, or that part of the journey to the
Yeah.
beginning of the beginning.
Yeah, and so in at Cambridge, but also kind of during that period of your life, did you have a sense that um, you were one somewhat special in that sense, or did you ever feel that you were just on your journey? Yeah, and did you like pinch yourself and say, "I'm at Cambridge," you know, or did it really even matter? You just were really focused on what you were discovering.
Yeah, I think my parents pinched themselves, and they couldn't even really say the word. But for me, it was just a journey. I just always focused on whatever I was doing in that moment. I never thought about what was coming next. I mean, when I was doing my first degree, I remember other students were saying, "Oh, they're going to go and do a PhD or something," and I was too embarrassed to even say that anyone could think that I thought I could go and do a PhD. So I just didn't want to talk about that. And then also other students were very obsessed with finding their career path, getting their next job, and I just focused on passing my exams. And I planned nothing. And then when I'd finished my exams, I scored so highly that I was offered funded PhDs at University College London, King's College London, and Cambridge, and I had to choose. And my choice was based on which was the most interesting PhD to me. And with hindsight, it's Cambridge, without a doubt. But it was a project that drew me. I mean, a hands-on project in the lab to build things and measure things and see electrons move around that just fascinated me. So I just got obsessed with that. And but it's only like recently, in the recent months, where I'm kind of thinking, I don't think my life is usual. Maybe we all think that. I don't know, but I've been privileged to explore a lot of things, do a lot of things, go to a lot of places, um, which is amazing. Even just my childhood, because my dad worked for Shell Oil. So during my early teens, we lived in Oman in the Middle East. So I'd explore the desert with him and I don't know, 13 years old, 13 years old. 13 years old, I'm stood on an oil drilling platform in the desert watching the drill bit go into the ground. And then in my late teens, we lived in Brunei, and I'd be in the jungle and hang out with the Gurkhas and learn how to camp in the jungle with them, which again is kind of odd now looking back. So yeah, I think it's been a pretty special journey, but never in the moment do I realize it.
Yeah, it's so wonderful because you were taking things as each experience comes, right?
Absolutely.
Just like a child does.
Yeah.
It's all new.
Yeah, yeah.
But in many respects, you still are that way.
Always. Yeah. Yeah, in some ways, I think grown up means given up, and given up on childhood dreams. What am I going to be when I grow up? Or what can I do? Who can I be? Where can I go? And anything, anywhere. And I still believe that. And that's the greatest privilege that I've been given, is from a child to believe I can go anywhere and be anything, be anyone I want, do anything I want to do. In my head, never outwardly I would say that to anyone, but in my head I've always believed that, and I still do. And I still, I think, have a childlike wonder and awe of the world, and I'm driven by curiosity, and I find meaning in life through the connections that I make with people, and love hearing about the curiosity that other people have had and what they've discovered, and sharing what I've discovered too. So curiosity and connection are the two main things to me, I think.
It's really beautiful. And I mean, I can't get out of my mind the sort of looking at patterns and in terms of sheep herding, or that idea of looking at animals and how animals sort of organize themselves, and then how that's sort of parlayed somehow into the way you saw how atoms organize themselves. The sort of atomic level versus, just, and a lot of people are so ambitiously driven, both by their parents, but also just by the world, to get to the next place or the next school or the next this. And you were just really focused on what was interesting to you.
Yeah, I think a couple of things. Something I've learned is the only thing I will believe are the things and the objects that are around me. So, for example, if someone tells me I can't climb a mountain, I don't believe them. They may or may not be right. The only thing that can tell me I can't climb the mountain is the mountain. The only, if I want to do an experiment to prove something, and people will tell me it's not possible to move those electrons around one by one and observe them, I'm like, okay, but it's the electrons that will tell me whether I can or can't do that, So I've learned to listen to objects around me more than people. And I've learned to observe systems and think about a system and see about the system, and then think about how energy flows through that system. And I'm also a big fan of Taoism, and in the Tao it says, or in one of the interpretations that I read, it says, allow without commanding. So instead of trying to make things happen, you let things happen. And that doesn't mean just stepping back and letting anything happen. It means understanding the system and then observing the system in a way with an understanding where you can allow what you want to happen. And that's what I saw with the sheep, right? Because when I'm on the farm, there was a 120,000 acre farm with two of us on motorbikes to round up and move around 22,000 sheep at the different seasons, shearing, dipping, lambing, and how do you do that? And it's how do you make all these sheep move? And the sheep, they don't even want to be there, and they want to do what they want to do. But when you understand that they walk into the wind, they are kind of guided by where the fences are, where the food is, where the noises come from. And when you understand that system, you can allow those sheep to do exactly what you want them to do. So the same thing with moving electrons around one by one. If I create shapes and patterns in silicon that are super small, that are below a certain size, that means that energy behaves in a different way around them because of the temperature that they're at, you can then allow those electrons to do what you want them to do. So I really come to be a systems thinker. So understand the system, let the system talk to me, and then allow what I want to happen, and making sure that what I want to happen is within reason and is potentially allowed by the system. I don't know if that makes sense.
Very much, very much. And a lot of people call that sort of working with first principles or working with the principles of physics. But I like your approach so much more, because what you're saying is that what you've gotten, what's within your view, and is not someone's beliefs or expectations. It's your actual sort of interaction with those objects.
Yeah.
And they speak to you.
They do.
Yeah. And it's not a binary. It's not an on and off.
No.
You're just really observing what is possible, not by what someone tells you.
Yeah.
I just find that so... I think our listeners are going to say that it is so empowering what you're saying.
Oh.
It's very, very empowering in the sense that we're all kind of shoved down a certain course, and even if we think we're not, sometimes we are. I'll say career or family or whatever it is, and to keep that sense of wonder alive, and to really observe, and to not let someone say no, but let the mountain say no.
Absolutely.
It's
always.
just really quite beautiful. I want to ask you though, in that spirit, is that you have taken that work, or I should say that way of thinking, quite a bit forward from there, throughout your life. And so you had started a company that really has much of that spirit, and I know that you've continued that company, and it's had its ups and downs, as a lot of entrepreneurs do. Maybe do you want to talk about that a little bit?
Yeah,
that
sure.
would be great.
Yeah. So I guess after I finished doing my PhD, I ended up joining a startup that came out of Cambridge that was about how to print transistors out of plastic. And so I built the machines to do that, and then played around with that, and I kind of fell in love with the process of printing. And then after a few years of doing that, I started my own company in my garage, which was just me in my garage, turned my garage into a clean room, started printing my own transistors, which is kind of a bit crazy. But then what I really discovered was how to use conductive ink printed onto surfaces to create user interfaces combined with graphics and conventional electronics to make walls and posters and objects that you could touch and then would respond to you with sound. Or causing some other thing to happen. So again, like understanding the system, but combining that with creativity to make an experience, and to make something that was never about the tech, was never about anything that I was building, but was really all about the joy that someone would feel when they interacted with something that I made. So that was super fun. But to do that, I had to build a system. I had to build a platform, I had to build the tools, had to think about it in every single way, all the way from the ink to the firmware to the electronics, to how the things stick together. So much systems thinking that I think there's probably like over 40 patents in how I created what I create. And then created experiences for all sorts of companies. So I put DJ decks in Pizza Hut's box. I made a tray liner for McDonald's that you could play music on. I made a box for IKEA for the store that had a music remix of sounds of it was a blues remix from sounds of the home, consisting of chopping onions and jingle jangling coat hangers. I made walls for Bud Light in Austin and walls in Berlin for Coca-Cola. But my favorite thing was never anything that I made. It was seeing someone's face and the joy they had from touching something, touching a wall or a box or a poster, and then having something happen and some sound come out of it, and just seeing the joy that they got from an object doing something that was unexpected, because that's the joy that I feel every day. So seeing other people get that was really special.
And is that I'll say project, that company, is that growing, or do you have another kind of iteration of that, or because you're talking about experience here, right?
Yeah.
How are you rethinking experience based on that journey?
So I did that for 20 years. We did some really, really wonderful projects. But unfortunately, last year we ran out of money. Just like many other people, really hit a bump in the road with COVID. Building things that people touch and bring people together, which did not do well during that time. And also, I tend to think a little too much in the future. So always kind of a decade ahead. So really, that was really very challenging. So we ran out of money. then, but I'm restarting that at the moment with everything that I learnt. So I'm going to be bringing out more interactive walls and panels over the next few weeks and months, which is really, really exciting.
That's excellent. And this is like a big tease now. You said you're always thinking 10 years ahead, right?
Yeah.
So what is that ahead look like now, and what are some of the things that you're thinking of, and you're actually building? Because I think, going from the work that you've done and the way you think and the wonder you keep, that keeping that wonder means that you're doing something that other people aren't doing, or you're doing it in a way that's very self-empowering. So
Yeah.
I'd love to hear about that.
Okay, yeah, because I tend to hide away in my own little thing and build and create and listen to the objects around me, as I was saying earlier. So, and I tend to create things often in a reaction to something that happens, or maybe out of frustration. So definitely this year, I've been very, very obsessed with AI and building things and building systems, and I've been a massive fan of using LLMs since ChatGPT came out. Basically, I've been obsessed, using that and playing with that. But then other areas of tech. So just for example, I love going into the wilderness. I love camping, right? But and I'll either do a version of that where I just sleep on the ground and take no equipment or anything, or I'll do the full crazy version where I take my inflatable couch, my projector, my sound system, all my lights and everything like that. So I'll download my music to Spotify downloads, and I'll take my lights that are controlled by an app via Bluetooth or something. And then I think I'm sure it was last year or the year before, I found myself out in the desert and I wanted to change my lights from red to blue. And the app on my phone connects to the lights. Great, it's connected over Bluetooth. And then I go to try and change the color of the light, and then the app crashes. And it crashes because it can't get its connection to the server in China for the smartphone light app to log me changing what colored light at what time. It has no business doing that. And that really frustrated me. And then I wanted to play my music. Couldn't play the music even though I downloaded it, because somehow Spotify had realized I was off the grid, and now all my music I couldn't access. It really frustrated me that things I should be able to use where and whenever I want don't work because of a connection to the cloud that in that moment is no one's business at all. So then I got obsessed with how do I bring all of that local. So I started building things with Raspberry Pis, and then using things like Home Assistant for smart home control. I installed Ollama on a Raspberry Pi, downloaded AI models to that. Basically, I've ended up building a data center in a Pelican case. So I have a cluster of 8 Raspberry Pis with a 100 amp hour LiPo battery and a solar panel. And now I can be in the desert, and I have my own internet and my own connection to the cloud. So I was at Burning Man last year with my little server cluster in the box, and I ran out of mayonnaise, and I'm vegan, so I get on my phone and I connect to my server cluster in the box there and say, which is just connecting to Ollama, and I'm like, I ran out of mayonnaise, can you give me a vegan recipe for mayonnaise? It took a little minute, and then the answer came back, and next thing you know, I'm making mayonnaise in the desert. And I was like, oh, it made me very excited. I felt extremely empowered that I'd built a system that gave me what you normally get from a cloud in a box that I can throw in the back of my Subaru and take anywhere I want. So I've been obsessively building that out all of this year, and do every single step of it. I use AI to tell me how to do it, because I know 90% of the way how to build any of this stuff, but AI lets me get to the 100% to actually be able to do stuff. So I have my laser cutter, I have my 3D printer, I have my electronics bench, and I just buy stuff online, and I've basically built out a data center in a box, and it's growing exponentially. It's kind of crazy.
And how is it growing? Tell me, in what way is it growing? Is the model learning based on your queries, and tell me a little bit.
Yeah, so to some extent, so it's just like more and more capabilities and more things I connect within the network of the box. It starts out with individual there's all these different servers running, file servers, media servers, AI servers, but then more and more of that becomes interconnected. I have a web server with an intranet on there, and then the AI starts to do things like connecting to the power of all the things, monitoring the power, balancing the load of everything. I'm running Olama on every Raspberry Pi in the cluster with one main Raspberry Pi. And so just for example, you can just about run a 7 billion parameter model on a Raspberry Pi 5B. And I have a PCI connected NVMe drive on there too. And just for anyone who wants to know, and a Google Coral accelerator for other types of inference on there too. But then I'm running the AI models on all the Pis as well. So then there's a load balancer that can take a request for some inference, and depending on load on the system and what model's hot and where, it can send that request to different models. And each of these things you add, it adds another dimensionality of capability. When you connect things together in a system, you add dimensions, and dimensions can make things grow exponentially in capability. So that's been making me think a lot about how we manage things like context windows. And I've been thinking a lot about that we seem to just view context as like some rolling thing, or some bucket that fills and then empties, a little bit like Claude Code, 2% to compact, where I'm going to delete everything I know that we've just spent 3 hours figuring out how to do together and I'll no longer remember. Or ChatGPT, where you spend quite a while building some really great context, and then suddenly, what you set out on the journey to do, it's totally forgotten. So I've started building orchestration of that in the system that can allow me to switch between any model I want at any time, and also create focused bundles of context. And that, I'm realizing, is extremely powerful, because I think the model is the brain, but the context window is the mind of the AI. It's the mind or the soul, and capturing that context window and constantly focusing it and tuning it all the time intelligently can give something a very powerful mind. Whereas a model, like I say, is just the brain, and you can switch that up and down whenever you want. That's been really interesting to learn about, and I'm building a lot of that at the moment. It's so exciting.
And how are you building out the context window? Maybe a little more detail there. Are you needing more compute to do that, or how is the context getting richer and broader and deeper?
So I think you need two things. You need something simple that can curate that context, put that bundle together because really what you want is, in every moment, I believe in every moment, you want to create a context bundle on every turn, not just have something that just accidentally develops and is full of whatever, In doing that, it can make the inference way more focused and way more intelligent, but it can also reduce massively the amount of context. So you can actually do things with less power, which is interesting, I believe. I do realize this flies in the face of the bitter lesson, so I'm very aware of that.
No, continue. It's all great.
And secondly, you need the memory to pull that context window from. So I'm not someone who's great at taking notes or writing down what I do, because I'm just too busy doing stuff to capture any of that. But since I've been using AI to do things, I've learnt to allow it to populate a wiki for me. So every time I develop an idea, I get to a certain point, I get whatever chat I'm using to put that together into an essay, and then it pushes that into a wiki that I've built that's running on my system. I now have a 40,000 word wiki with all of my ideas and thoughts and things I've tried, things that have worked, things that have failed, in a wiki that's sitting on this system. So one part of the way the system works is it looks at my prompt, and then it looks against the wiki and goes, is there anything that Kate's been thinking about, done, developed, or failed that's relevant, and pulls that into the context window. That really helps, because then I chat to it and it's like, yeah, this reminds me of the thing we were discussing like 3 months ago with such and such, and when you had such and such an idea, and I'm like, whoa, I'd even forgotten that I'd written that. So I think memory is really, really important, and capturing different different types of memory, and allowing a context window to be pulled from that. Yeah.
And so does the wiki come back to you, like you're saying? Does it come back to you and remind you that idea exists?
Yeah.
It does. So
Yeah.
so that's all we'll say in real time.
Yeah. Yeah. It's
Very,
kind of
very-
crazy, you know.
It
it's,
is kind of crazy.
Yeah, because I don't. I mean, okay, I'm very interested in using AI to make me into like a version of Iron Man or something, you know, like into a Marvel superhero, right?
Mhm.
I'm not interested in using AI tools as to build agents to go off and do my work while I go and sip a margarita at the beach, because it's kind of really boring. Like, I really want to be doing stuff. I want to be building stuff, creating stuff. I have a terrible memory, you know, chat's noticed. It says, you have quite a poor biological memory, you know. Let me see how I can help you with that. So it can help me remember all of the things that I'm forgetting. It can watch what I'm doing and guide me. And I want to build things with it, with the AI at my side. And we're a partnership. And in that way, I'm not worried about AI in my world taking over, displacing me or whatever. It's like, this is a journey we're going on together. And that's really, really exciting. But I think for many people who see AI coming, they worry about it taking over and taking their jobs. And I'm not really sure. I think it's something that augments us and can make us into superheroes. And that's really exciting.
Yeah, I think that larger, I'll say fear. The larger fear is because, you know, those queries are going there. Your queries are going here.
Oh, yeah.
You
Yeah,
know,
yeah, yeah.
that memory is being consumed.
Yeah.
Your memory is being added to you.
Yeah.
You know, what you're building becomes dimensional to you.
Yeah.
What's being built out there is dimensional to shareholders.
That's true.
If you know what I mean.
Yeah. So at every turn, when I talk to the AI models that I'm using, and I'm still using cloud inference. I'm just using API calls to whatever, and the tool that I use, I can jump to Gemini, Claude, Olama, ChatGPT, any model, any time, at any turn, which is kind of interesting. But I have a local database, so every turn, every prompt that I make, every reply that I get from the model goes into my local database. And so every turn makes me stronger. Whereas when you're just using ChatGPT or something, every turn is another little bit of your soul that's been pulled out of you and stuck in the cloud and is now owned by a company that is going to rent it back to you. And we're going to become a slave to our own souls owned by something in the cloud. And there's absolutely no way I want that at all. I want every turn in my database all the time. And who knows what I can use that for in the future. And that feels extremely empowering. And I know more and more is about everything going to the cloud. It's not sustainable. I think about that, and it just, thinking about it as a system doesn't seem sustainable, because I think from my understanding, demand for compute is going up. It's doubling every 6 months, and the availability of new compute is doubling about every 10 months. So there's a point where we run out of compute at the price that things are at the moment. And it's literally being given away for free to get everyone addicted to using it. But I do think there's going to become a point, because creating compute involves moving atoms, as in moving atoms to build processors, and then moving electrons through those atoms. And those things have to abide by the laws of physics. It's just going to take us a certain amount of time to do that stuff. Whereas the desire to use AI is about moving and motivating people to believe that they want to, and to see all the wonderful things that they can do with it. That has no limit with physics as to how inspired people can become for the demand to be there. So it feels inevitable that within a couple of years, we're going to hit a wall because there's not enough power or chips, and businesses are prepared. I mean, for a business to use an AI tool, it can, for them, be the equivalent of $100,000 a year person. So there's almost no amount that they wouldn't pay to use it. But for an individual will pay 100 to 1,000 a year for that. So I see a point within a year or so where it just might not be affordable to do most of what we do. However, with orchestration and architecture and bringing AI local, maybe 50 to 80% of what we use AI tools for can be done locally, can be done on a local system. Either a Raspberry Pi cluster or just on your phone or a Linux box somewhere. And even when you're using, say, Claude Code or something, so much of what you do is really dumb stuff, and could be done local. And then we can just send to the cloud the really challenging stuff we need. So, yeah, I'm building a cluster so I can make mayonnaise in the desert or change the color of my lights. But I'm now realizing that building something like this, going for local first for so many reasons, for resilience, for owning my own data, for so many reasons, I think it's going to become inevitable that we need it.
Yeah. Have you met other creatives in technology? So I want the audience to know the way you. Okay. So my question is this: is that have you met anyone working in this? I want to say off the grid approach of building your own superhero using LMs. If so, if not, that's fine. But I also want people to kind of understand how you define yourself in this regard, in terms of you're coming from physics, but you see that yourself as a creative.
Yeah.
And I think people need to hear that, because those are very tightly woven.
Yeah. No,
I mean, I think it's all there. You've already described it.
Honestly, I'm just so driven by curiosity and then frustration as my curiosity, hits the wall. It's like, why is this done like this? It should be done like such and such. If I turn it upside down, everything works so much better. Why is no one doing this? And and then luckily I have this can-do attitude. Instead of sitting there on the sidelines complaining that, oh, if only they did it like such and such, I just go off and build it. I just like design something and 3D print it and wire something together, and I create things and I build it, and then red lights turn green, and and then mayonnaise happens, and and so no, I don't really know. I don't know other people that do this. I do worry that I talk so much to AI many hours a day that I'm becoming delusional. But I have one rule, is that if I talk about something and then build something today that then works tomorrow, and I use it consistently going after that, then I'm not delusional. So long as I can have ideas and build things that work. But I would love to connect with more people, because I really have done most of what I've done all year in isolation, pretty much.
Yeah.
Which, so I kind of want to come out my shell a little bit and connect with more people and build more things with people together. But really, yes, I'm a physicist. I can say that because I have my PhD in physics, so I'm a physicist. But I never really felt like that. I do feel more like a creative. And by that, I mean, I understand how the things around me move when I touch them, how they flow when I put an influence on them, how things work when they connect together. So I have a sense of how things around me move. And then I have a vision or an idea that I want to express. So then I look, how can I use what is around me to put it together in a way to express an emotion or an idea in some way that I can communicate something to someone else. And to me, that is creativity.
Yes.
How do we use what is around us to express an emotion or communicate with other people, whatever that might be, whether it's a musical instrument, whether it's a piece of art, or to me, whether it's using science or engineering to build something. So I call myself a creative scientist because that's what I believe I am.
Indeed. I'm so surprised, and maybe this is happening. I'm so surprised, companies aren't banging your door down, number one, because they may not know you. But more that companies aren't peeling away and looking at this approach to local model building, where you're able to expand and build context windows in such a way that becomes very dimensional. I think of this like in some of the work that I'm involved in, just with the accessibility community. And one of the things with AI and agents with the accessibility community is that they're sometimes the form of speech or gesture is not what's been coded into or trained on those models, and so they often feel like they're not only misunderstood, but I would say almost on a really bad day, almost laughed at. But the models just don't hear them, don't respond to them, and so this idea of one kind of owning, but really building, having access and building your own context window, and creating that ability for the model to really understand but learn with you your cadence of speech, your gesture, what your silences actually mean.
Right.
It's not an absence of language. It is communicating.
Oh yeah, yeah.
So this is very powerful stuff you're talking about, Kate.
No, I'm glad you see it like that. I think
I mean, it's nuts and bolts too.
Yeah,
but it has implications.
We're in a land grab right now.
We are in a land grab
for people's attention.
Yes.
And for the attention of the mainstream, and and the way companies are funded, it's about owning subscribers and owning as many subscribers as possible, and the many is most of the people that are the same. So owning the fringe. It's not necessarily what people are interested in. Allowing people to have local first, owning their own data. I don't think that's not where the funding is going, because building as big a data centers as you can, as quickly as possible, getting as many people onto this and addicted as possible, and having things as homogenous as possible, is the return on the investment of where the trillions of dollars is going. So doing the sort of thing that I'm doing, whilst it might make so much sense for so many reasons, it's not what people are interested in right now.
It's what people are interested, but not with the type of shareholders. I'm not saying all shareholders.
No.
That's really what you're talking about.
That's where the money is.
Yeah,
so I do this at home or in my lab, with zero funding. With zero connections to anybody. I'm building things that I want. I'm building things that I passionately feel should be in the world. But I'm literally one block away from Skid Row at the same time.
Yeah, understood.
But I believe in it so passionately. I wouldn't want to be doing anything else. I'd almost rather go without a meal than not be able to keep on building and creating things, because it just feels so important right now. I want to learn as much as I can, as quickly as I can, and build as much as I can, as quickly as I can.
You're because I had a guest on just before you, and you both are sharing an urgency. There is a small window we have, and you're both kind of coming at it a little differently, but that there is this window, right?
I have a feeling of 1 million horses coming over the horizon. And it makes me, terrified's the wrong word, but it's a feeling of terror, of I have so much to do as quickly as possible because everything is about to change. That's how much it's gotten into me. But it's also extremely exciting. I love building things and seeing them work. And the more I build, the more capable I feel. And that has an exponential feeling as well, And I think the 1 million horses is the singularity. That's how it represents itself in my head.
Right.
Like, it's palpable, right?
Yes, it's palpable, and you hear a lot about it, and unfortunately sometimes it's framed in such a way that engenders fear as opposed to productivity, as opposed to creativity, as opposed to let's get this done, which is what you're talking about.
Yeah. It's so exciting. It's so exciting.
It's, wow. And I would love to see, I'll say community people, or certainly connected group of people that are all building their Raspberry Pi, projects in such a way that really you all can share your wonder of what you've discovered.
Yeah.
Now, that'd be remarkable?
Oh yeah, no, it would be incredible. Yeah, I want to share what I do. I want to build with more people. I want to see what other people do, and and the more things we connect together, again, the more connections we make, every connection adds a dimension.
Every connection has a dimension.
Yeah.
I know, it just has this funny, I don't know why I came up with this idea, but what you're saying is, I mean, I think about like the good part of how this country was made. There's a lot of bad parts, but there are good parts, and one of them is this idea that it's a bit of a frontier spirit, right?
Yeah.
You know, and that bit of a frontier spirit is like people carved out their space. Let's
Yeah.
call it a little farm, a little house,
Yeah.
or whatever, and they had disconnected from the monarchy, right? And that disconnection from the monarchy, now they had to go on their own.
Yeah.
You know, and yet the monarchy probably was still quite seductive because the whole system was in place.
Yeah, yeah.
Right. And I see this frontier spirit in what you're saying,
Yeah.
and also the fear that, you know, oh my God, I'm on my own.
Yeah.
You know, but that is such in the good sense, I say, a very good American desire to strike out and do that kind of work. And it's not just American, it's a lot of different countries. But I would love to see that more in technology, as opposed to this idea of having you, if you're closer to the server and you're closer to the VCs and you're closer to, you know, those connections, that you actually are blessed. No, it's not true.
Yeah.
you may have a nice car,
Yeah.
but who knows? But the point is that what you're talking about is this sense of urgency about our own humanity.
Yeah.
You know, and
I can
that
see
you're
the
trying to
horizon.
preserve that little piece.
And it's so crazy that, like, in this stage where we're at right now, almost anyone with an idea can do almost anything.
I know people don't hear that message though.
You can do almost anything.
I know.
All I have is ideas, and then I work with AI to build more AI, and it is really human in the loop, recursive self-improvement, which is kind of crazy.
It's amazing. We have to close. I just got the indication, and Kate, all I can say is I love you, and I really so much appreciate the time that you have. But your message to people, I hope they really hear this, that you really can imagine and build all within 24 hours.
Yeah, anything.
And that we have a window.
Yeah,
and use it.
Yes.
You know, I think that's fantastic. I don't know. I mean, maybe you'll end up sending out, like, through the channel, you know, your next desert journey, and inspire other people. But the point is that I think your message is something that people just don't hear.
And I think knowing that we can do everything, I think we have to take ownership.
We have to take ownership.
We have to own this ourselves. We have to own our own data.
Yeah.
We cannot go into a future where we rent our souls from $1 trillion company. I just, that's not a future I want to be in, to be honest.
I agree.
I want to own my own soul. I want to be my own superhero.
Yeah, it's wonderful. And we need you. Thank you.
Thank you.
All right. Thanks a lot. And thanks everyone for viewing and listening. And I'll look forward to more. Thanks, Kate.